Good. Now, hopefully, you can hear me. My microphone this time was muted, so I don't know what was going on with all that, but let me know again if you can hear me, Gopher Girl, or anybody else out there. Anyway, as I was saying, PK&W Model Works Bob snuck in here first early. Oh, my goodness. Here we go again with audio problem. All right. Let me see. Okay, so you guys can hear me loud and clear. Um, but then I was getting feedback again. It all started very weird again here. Uh, Welcome in, everybody. Hang tight, folks. More audio issues. All right, we're gonna try again. I know you guys can hear me, so tell me that you can still hear me. Mhm. I'm gonna have a really rough night again if I have this feedback because I can't talk and listen to myself because I can't stand myself. So, all right, let's see here. So I'm gonna try this again. And my microphone is my Yeti microphone. And I muted my computer speakers. So I'm gonna try this again. And hopefully this is working and you can hear me. My microphone is my Yeti microphone. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead until you tell me it's all gone to hell. Um, so I got lots of people in here. Happy Friday, everybody. Uh, we had PK and W Modelworks Bob in first. Then Gopher Girl made it in next, and Mom, welcome in. Nice to have you in here, Jimmy. Nice to have you in here as well. Um, Maybe while I'm going through this, Jimmy, if you could tell us how the convention went up in Canada. The Twin Cities division, I'm sorry, the Thousand Lakes region of the NMRA had their annual convention up in just outside of Winnipeg in Canada. And just recently, I wasn't able to make it, but I know Jimmy was there. So hopefully, you can give us a rundown. Um, Rick, welcome in. I was waiting for you to cut those fingers off, working with those little tiny parts, but good job. White, welcome in. James, welcome. James is one of our Canadian counterparts up there, and welcome down here. Not far away, pretty much, because Minnesota to me is like Southern Canada. Okay. See if I missed anybody. Well, even on my screen, your logo BHS is really small. I'm still trying to get everybody's name, so let me know your name as well, and I'm going to try and remember folks' name. But welcome, nice to have you here. Okay, so yeah, so the biggest update is well, really the only update for me is I I frustrated the crap out of myself working on the coil car, starting the details. Um, there aren't a lot of details on here, and most of them are on the bottom, made up of the brake parts that can be commercial. So, um, and the trucks, and as usual, I'm not using a thanks, JP. And yeah, what happened to your washer, Janice? We've been very lucky with most of our appliances, and biggest one was our our dryer, and it was going to cost just about as much to repair it as it was to buy a new one. So we bought a new one and have had that one running for years. So there wasn't much detail to go by. There's also nothing really, there are no pictures out there of the underside. So all I can go by is what they had underneath in general, what the descriptions were, and Tangent Scale Models, who builds this, has some extensive pictures that they have. They didn't show any pictures. The model that they use, they don't. They show a kind of an angled top down type of picture. They don't show. Um, um, they don't show the underside, but I do know that they had the Hydra cushion underside. And so I found one through Scale Models. It's one of their plastic kits. So I bought a couple of the kits from our local hobby shop who stocked them. And working through this, there's one part that broke off way too easy. That I'm going to have as part of the brake system that I'll have to get on there. Um, I've otherwise added it throughout um, with the extended um, coupler pockets. Uh, I these don't look, in my view, don't look scaled to the pictures of the cars, but this was a better thing for me to do on a first build of it is to use this commercial part instead of building it out. And maybe, I will have to, for the 3D print, I'm going to have to come up with it. So I haven't moved on this because I've been working on the scratch built with the styrene. But I'm going to have to get the coupler pockets and I'm going to have to figure those out. Um, I haven't touched this and I've just been trying to work through this. I want to get one done. I do want to get it evaluated. What if I were and I've been a judge, and if I were evaluating this myself, I would say I'm somewhere in the mid 70 point range with this, which wouldn't qualify for a merit at this point. But again, there's no finishing on it. Um, from a modeling perspective, it's also not it doesn't have a lot of detail, so it's going to be considered a simpler build. What I should have done is I should have brought up a picture. Let me see if I can grab a picture from the interwebs. And so I can show you some of that detail. Where are you? Not the eyeballs. I don't want the eyeballs. Kind of free curves. Come on. And then we want the G1A coil cutters. We want coil cut steel coil cutters. Come on. And then so let's take a look. I want to show you a particular side of one if I can. Here's a good one. All right, where'd it go? Come on. All right. This is not cooperating with me either. Good night. This is so far. Yes. All right. So let me share here. Man, let's make this bigger. Bigger, because I'm blind. All right. And then okay, so as you can see, all the detail on the side are basically the Hey, Modeling Steel, welcome in. Appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us. So the so there, again, there's not a lot of detail on here, and I'm gonna try and. So of course, it's all about the grab irons. There is some small, depending on the car, and this is the car that I'm really looking at. There are um, I don't know if they're hinges or what they are, but there are something to hold the hoods on, and this is the car that doesn't have a hood, and so I could model them technically, and if I get an evaluation, they say it needs more detail, that's something to put on. They would have about 3 of those latches for the hoods on the side. There is a small detail, um I don't even know what that would be, but there's a small detail there. And then the grab irons, and you can see I have grab irons on there. And I promise that's not blood or anything. I did use a red marker to try and pinpoint where to put the grab irons. But there are grab irons all around. Now there is, if you can see, let's see if I can move it over. Oh, let's see if it's possible. Oh, hmm. Yes. Okay, so there is a grab iron at the top left here. It's gonna have to be on my model, it's gonna have to be really small. It's a much bigger over here. There are some things that I ran into that weren't easy to deal with. Um, and I also noticed I didn't have these ledges on here, so I added those as well. Uh, you can kind of there you go. You can kind of see them along here. So that was a detail I added. And then just slightly on the ends here, there are grab irons, and they were not uniform on every car. So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. And on this side, the brake wheel broke off. I just put that on too early. I'm going to have to put another one on there. And then I added those. And these ladders came with the Hydro Cushion set, and I just cut them. They're also the ladders on these cars are 3 rung, um, um, have 3 rungs, or well, they have a rung at the very top, so there are 3 rungs, and then all the other pieces are at the top. And then there'll be some details that came with the kit. Um, and so there's some that came with the kit that'll go onto like the coupler cut lever, and some other details underneath that I'll finish up with. Then the rest of it is painting the car, and then decals. But I will tell you that um, the and I can get and let me get see if I can get um, another picture. But they're basically the car ends are simple. Um, and they're both the same except for they have on one end they have the um, brake wheel, and so that was kind of hard to get some good pictures of the ends. I did get a few. Let me see if I can find a picture with the brake wheel, and then I can show you mine as well. Um, so I don't know if this is going to be a great one. Oh, that one will be okay. So this one has a little bit more detail because of the brake wheel side of it. That up and reshare. The let's see. Okay, so here's the brake wheel side, and again, it's the same thing. It has across the three middle parts, where the three middle supports are, there are grab irons or just iron that goes across. How and this the brake wheel assembly is attached on there, and then you have the side road. So not very different. You have the chain that's going down as well. And let me pull this out a bit. And so here is my copy of it. Now this had a chain, a plastic half like chain that went through it, and I didn't drill a hole in this originally, and so I didn't have it going through, and it was just bent off. So I cut that off, and I'm gonna glue. I have an HO scale chain left over from another project somewhere. I've lost it, but I'm gonna try and find it again, and then I'm gonna and again, I drilled a hole through there, and I'll just have it come down through there, and I'll get the brake wheel back on there. But again, um, not a huge amount of detail on those ends, and and it took some trial and error to get this right, and but the last detail that I did was to try and match the tangent support cross beams. Thank you, I appreciate it. And so these wheel sets, these are 3D printed. I found somebody had built I think it was a think it was a tank car. I don't remember. The car was fine, but out of all of the wheel sets I've seen people design for 3D printing, this one was by far the nicest looking one. It looks it's scaled to other brands and prints fast. And I put graphite in where the wheels connect, but you don't even need it. These spin fantastically well. The only criticism I have is um, in here where it takes the screw, it's a little bit wide. So some of the smaller screws, like Phillips, the 256 Phillips screws that I have, go right through. Where these with I don't know if you call that a pan head, but those tend to stay in there. So on other cars, I've mocked up with styrene kind of a stop, but I'll print 20 of these at a time, and so I have them on hand, and so you can get a close up look at these. Well, if I keep it on camera, you get a close up look at those. So I don't, people who are more expert at trains than me will tell you that what um, how this is. Now I use this on all my cars, so even my passenger cars have this, and finding passenger car trucks isn't that easy. Um, and there's nothing 3D printed that I've liked. So I've used these on passenger cars and stuff. And if I have to change them out for an evaluation or something on the passenger cars, I'll do that. But for now, these work. They work beautifully well. Whoever crafted them crafted those well. And this is three FDM printed. So um, I just so I've defaulted to them, and I don't have problems. My problems are my track work skills, not the cars will run fine. The final detail, um, the final detail was these cross beams, and so this was a fun little experiment to do. They don't have solid cross beams. They on the pictures anyway from Tangent, they have these. It kind of holds these up. These are it's kind of, I don't know, it's like it lifts them up and it keeps the center beam separate from the car, and so that just took cutting and fitting styrene pieces, and it's not this car is not well built, in my opinion, and we'll see when it gets evaluated. There's all kinds of problems with these sides, which include, um they're not exactly even where these things line up, and that has more to do with the center, the Hydra cushion model than anything, because it's not this is not, the same on both sides of the center, um, and so it wouldn't have looked as good if I moved these in and, had them kinda close together, but, on Tangent's model, they're closer together. It still looks okay to me, um, and so we're getting closer and closer to the end of this one, and so we'll keep working through that. The center this center beam is, that's the Hydra cushion set bob from Scale Models, so injection molded plastic, um, and so it where is it? Here's a picture of it here. So this is kind of the whole thing, and again, it wasn't specifically meant for this. I don't know if it said, this is a really short car, so this was a little bit long, and I had to cut these down, and I had to cut them because I had the bolsters in the middle. Uh, so these were cut a little differently, but that's your setup. These brake parts right here, they come off really far off of the center beam, and they were all here's the part. They were all one set together, which is fine, but they were literally held on with what I would call a nub right there, and just from handling the car, um, there was somewhere over here, just from handling the car, they came off, and so I'm gonna get it glued back on, it's just not gonna look exactly the same, and there are a couple other parts, like I said, to detail the ends, um, and then but that I did a lot of work on this, and I spent a lot of frustrating nights, and I used these, the TC, um, O 0125, wire, and most of it is not in here anymore and not on here anymore, but it's all over the place. There's remnants on this mat. They're back behind the computer there. They're on the floor. They got on me. So most of it, again, I was like, am I going to have to go to the hobby shop just to pick up another set of this wire? But I used two methods. I used a in here. It's not in here. I created a small jig for the ones on the end, because none of these beams are basically uniform. I had to just create them based on the beams. They're just not uniform. But these I can measure out, and measured at 5 millimeters, and that worked out that I used this as a jig. So I started by bending them around this piece. This was a 100 by 188, so it was close enough. 4.8 millimeters, and that worked well, because you have to take in consideration the bend, is that extra little space. I also created a jig for depth because I don't know if you can see in here. Um, I didn't really plan well for that. I'm gonna try and put a I'm gonna try and ruin this basically, but I am going to, uh, uh, I have to bend some of them back just so they're not quite in eyesight, and I was doing that, but it's not easy trying to protect these, I need something flatter than that. About this one, we could try that. Uh, there we go, that. And then we just want it a little bit out of eyesight, because this is pretty thin. And so what I did, and I don't know where the jig went, but the jig has disappeared. But I used 030 styrene, and because that's generally accepted as the spacing. And then I made one part of it 060 with the by doubling it up, and I cut. I once I cut them with around this styrene, I then cut them down to 0.6 length to limit the amount of length going into the styrene. And none of these are perfect. There is one set that did okay, I think, but then I got a lot of glue on it. I think this one's the most okay of the bunch, but they're still angled slightly weird. Um, but I think that's about as clean as I can get them. No, the center beam is this should be considered part of the brake system, Bob, for the 'cause the hydro cushion, it's all part of the brake system, so that should be fine. Um, there's while construction's not the biggest part of it, they do look construction. Um, and my construction, I would consider okay. I wouldn't give myself high points for construction. And when I started with the flat car, construction didn't got about half the points. Um, this should this should get near or close to the 15 points for scratch building because it's all scratch built except for the acceptable parts, which are the couplers and the brake system and the wheels and trucks. Everything else is scratch built. Even these parts, even though they're 3D printed, they're my design. I can prove that they're my design, and so they qualify as scratch build. So I'll get points for those. Conformity. This looks pretty darn close to a coil car, and I'll have the pictures to show that. So that conformity should be high scored. I just think, the way I know that things are evaluated, um, they're not going to see a huge amount of detail. The detailing, even though there's going to be a lot of decals on here, decaling and painting is all part of finishing, so it has its own points. So when part of details, and they do have some measure of the details, and so that's why I actually want to struggle to put on the vertical um, um, grab iron around on all four corners because it's an extra part and more parts help with the scoring on details, but they're so tiny and they're going to be 3 millimeters in length, so much more tiny, so harder to work with. um, i have I have about 1,000 of these little step grab irons that have that step down on there. um, that, and um, they're not exactly, they're a certain length, and so in order to do this, I ended up just making my own. Um, so it's a struggle I'm happy I'm done with for now. I did add that one little part there. Um, there's not much else other than the details it comes with to add on here, and on some of the brake details. Adding the chain on here will help, as well. So that's how you're gonna fill your details. So, and of course, I'm gonna be critical of myself, so maybe I'm a little more critical, but I'm not sure this is merit worthy, but we'll see at some point. Um, so we have in our division, we have a couple of end scalers who make it make just put me to shame as far as how nice their stuff looks. My stuff always looks messy. Their stuff is pristine, and they're end scalers, and I just don't get it. I can't see it. I can't work with it with my hands that small. Um, but uh, um, you know, and that's the thing. So the with rivet counters, with evaluations, with all that, I only need one of these. I need one of these evaluated, but if I build the second one, I need it super detailed, and I don't know if this is the car to be considered super detailed. I do want to finish this build in 3D printed mode, I guess you would say, and, um, I want them compared. I wanna see them judge both of them. So, it's how to get them on there. Um, putting I I'm not gonna likely attempt to do grab irons. If I was doing um, if I was doing resin printing, I might go for the grab irons and things to come across here. But I think that I'm gonna have to add them, and that's a different beast. Trying to use your drill into plastic like this. It's a harder plastic than styrene, and so I'm gonna have to figure that out. On this one, I have to get these centered more correctly, uh, and then figure out how to add that small detail. And you can add really, really small detail with filament printing. It takes longer to print, and you have to use the smallest nozzle, you have to use the smallest layer lines. It's possible to do something like that. I don't think it'll be as thin. I don't think they'll be, uh, I'll be able to get it as accurate. On another car, I've printed cross beams, so I can get them small, but the littler detail, I'm not sure I could do. This will also get the Hydra cushion from CalScale models. Uh, I learned that on here, I have to have full infill for the screws to stay in there, and these have to be lined up. Uh, and you probably can't see that as well, but these are not lined up well to take. Um, they're not lined up evenly. Further out, it might look better to have the coupler pocket right up against them, so we might be able to do something like that. I don't know if you can tell on here, but this is about a millimeter thick. It's thicker than the styrene. Uh, and then just getting to this point was a struggle. I have um, some other ugly looking ones of these that I've done, but I've got myself back into getting the cars done. So I'm really trying to finish this one out. It can be evaluated on its own, but I'm still gonna finish one 3D printed and have it evaluated, even if I add details outside of that. Um, but that's kind of the big update. Let me see if I can backtrack on some of the comments. So see here. So I appreciate the compliments on it. Um, let's see. So yeah, so the kit again, just to clarify, the kit is the the center beams. Now I could you can scratch build this if you want. I mean, you can use well, there goes my lighting. Um, you can use like channel styrene here to do these pieces. Get your commercial AB brake set to add to this. So you could build this yourself. Um, I went with the whole cushion kit. It came with a few extra details and everything. And so this was my first attempt. So I went with what was there. And my main concern the whole time was get trying to make these longer coupler boxes look scale. Let me share the picture again. And let's do this. So what I'm talking about on the end here are these coupler boxes that are like just shooting out from the side. Now, to me, it doesn't quite look scale. The Cal scale model doesn't quite look scale. Being that it's couplers, it doesn't have to be scratch built. I don't have to worry about that. Um, I still would attempt to do it, and I've got to again, if I don't have to, but the coupler box I could probably create and print, um, but I wouldn't have to because it comes with this. But again, the um, again, this setup you could build, but this was a kit. This piece here, it's just the center piece um, here. So this along here, and then I cut them and shortened them a little bit to fit my model because this was designed for a bit longer of a model. Um, it's kind of fancy and everything. I don't know if you necessarily need it, but because wanted the prototypical Hydra cushion bottom, um, ooh, there goes the light. Now the light's on. Um, that's why I went with this. I again, I can see this being somewhat not necessarily simple, but I could see using two pieces of channel, some cutting some little tiny pieces to connect the channels and putting the brake detail in the middle of it or off to one side of it anyway. So yeah, that's the yeah. Yep, I had to get back into this. It wasn't just about having a plan and going. It was just I got out of it and I was doing other projects, as most of you know, on the stream, including one I was going to start working on tonight as well, if there's time. Um, and I'm still doing those other projects like the diner build and stuff. But I'm feeling, it's a personal time crunch. Um, I worry about age and things like that, and having a chance to actually achieve um, master model railroader status. Um, I do want to accomplish that. I want to get the certificates that go along with it. So I want to finish these projects. So, but if I get out of it and work on other stuff, or I get frustrated with it, like I was super frustrated with these grab iron. Oh my goodness, I wonder if it's overheating. I was super frustrated. Gopher Girl will tell you I've had to walk away a couple times this week and come back to it in the next day to get them done. But I'm really motivated to move on and get these cars done. I have a bunch of cars that are sort of half done, or mostly done, or a quarter done, and so I'm trying to move it along. Yep. So um, I may well do that, Bob, because I've run into issues where I've tried to put too much together, um, and print all at once. And so these bolsters obviously are 3D, not obviously, but these bolsters are 3D printed on this one. There's no reason I couldn't 3D print them and then put them on this one as well, um, with a more detailed print, smaller nozzle and layer lines. This is just a draft. Um, I could, this will look much better, and got to get that solid infill. So it is, yeah. Ken, welcome in. Yes. So, and the LaBelle name was bought, and I don't know if it was bought a couple times, but it was bought. But now I'm understanding that it's totally going out of business. That there's not another buyer for LaBelle kits. But that is cool. I've seen a few LaBelle kits around and thought about it, and that's what keeps slowing me down, and I'm trying to stay away from doing that when I go to train shows and things like that. But that's awesome. If you drew your own plans, it would be considered scratch build if you're just using the wood from there for sure. Um, so, one of the things I'm kind of upset about on my flat car was I loved how the wood deck came out on that flat car, but to put weight on it, I ended up putting stuff on that covers up a chunk of the wood on that. Thanks, Bob. I am going to definitely try and keep moving on it. Yeah, ice cream does that. I've made a lot of trips to the store to get chocolate, Bob. Um, Chocolate's my stress food, um, and I have a lot of it because I have a lot of stress. Obviously, a lot of it self-imposed. Um, Also, being a middle manager um, makes me have a lot of stress because I have no control over everybody else screwing up, but I have to yell at them. So, so yeah, that's what I worked on, and now I've been wanting to do. So the other thing I was going to do tonight, what I've been wanting to do is also, as an aside, again as a distraction, want to um, want to make snow scenes and things. I think that's really cool. I've showed you before that I tested what snow would look like on roads. Here's an example. And for snow between the roads, I did this. So we're doing a total kind of 180 here. So I did this here as a mound that piling up. And so it's a method using shaving cream and baking soda and paint. That's it. very simple idea. So I was going to mix some up because I want to play with some snow. Gopher Girl wants real snow. I don't want real snow. I like models for this. So literally, you don't need gloves with this, and it won't harm you to be mixing stuff up with your hands. I'm using computer stuff, so I didn't want to necessarily mess it up. But again, shaving cream, baking soda, and paint. Um, I recommend paint, even though this is white, and this is white. I recommend the paint because this can yellow, mixture can yellow or kind of change color over time. So I think we're gonna have a little fun. I'm not measuring this, but I just want to make some snow that I can use on stuff. Um, okay. Uh, Yeah, Dwight, the problem is I'm my own worst enemy when it comes to that, and I think a lot of us are, but I've always been super critical of myself. And generally I've always thought things weren't, they're not necessarily good enough. And when you're working on models like this and you're looking at it every day and you're trying to put those in, and then you see the glue marks that you have throughout them, all shiny now with it unfinished. You see that they got bent up from you moving around or they're not angled correctly. Um, that's frustrating. And then, I do what you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to compare yourself to others because everybody's at a different skill level, has different years of experience and all that. But I've always been super critical. I can blame my dad probably for that. I'm sure that's a trait of his that I got. If I could, um, you know, I certainly, if I could praise myself for doing a good job, I would do it. When I was at the convention last year with the flat car and did so well from an award standpoint, I was forcing myself to enjoy it and to, all the thank yous I got and everything was, you know, that was hard for me to do. And I had to walk up and get awards several times for several different things because we had kind of popular vote. I had the car that merited and also won best in show, and um, you know all of that. I have a bunch of awards from that, and I had to keep walking up. And I was really, really trying to. I mean, I was critical of it. I said there were less models there than the year before, so it was easier for me to win what I won and all of that stuff. And so that's kind of what I mean by me being a little too, um, critical of myself. Uh, so, I thought about, what's my target going to be for this? So I grabbed one of the models I did the sculpt mold on. And so this already has a lot of weight to it because I only use so much color on this one, but I want to see what it looks like. It'll certainly look smoother than this. So once we get some of this made, we'll add it to that and see how that goes. So we've got a bunch of uh, where'd it go? We've got a bunch of Zen folks in here. Um, Comparison is the enemy of joy. It sure is. But I can't stop myself from that. And where was Dwight's comment in here? Dwight's comment up here. Where did it go? Well, there you go. That was when we were talking about, label kits, and I'll leave it at that. Uh, where did he go? Alright. So it's for snow, Bob. We're making snow for the fun of it. So see, we're doing something for the fun. Now I'll be critical if this doesn't come out and look good, but this one I'm really just doing because I really want to do it. And it has nothing. It's just to practice basically. Yeah, and you know, even when you're getting models evaluated, um, that progress over perfection, because you're not going to ever be evaluated as having um, perfection. And so that's actually a good lesson if you're in the world where you're doing models for evaluation. But here we go. We're gonna get some in here. And then get some. And I think there are people that have measurements out there for this. When I've done this in the past, um, and baking soda and shaving cream. Um, the shaving cream can reduce, um, but let's see what we come up with. And you got to mix it, mix it, mix it. And the it should start if it's getting cold, it means it's mixing. So that's a good sign when it does that. Um, but again, you want to get it mixed because, like I said, it um, does it has the possibility where it can reduce. Um, but what you're basically doing with the baking soda is making the shaving cream stay around. Otherwise, shaving cream would eventually lose its moisture and evaporate. And it's very stark white, but the reason for that I think you add the white in anyway is for the purposes of um, keeping it from yellowing or changing color over time if you're not adding color to it. So, so that's kind of what it's looking like with the mixture that I did. And it's very sticky, obviously. Now you can certainly um, I mean, this is like a kid friendly, this is like kid science kind of stuff, but it really does work well for looking like snow, in my opinion. Then we can add a little. Come on. Well, that's a wonderful sound. And again, we're just testing this out, and it does, you can tell it certainly reduces. And so you want to make a lot of it for sure. Maybe I can cover up my cutting mat with this. So let's go ahead and get this everywhere. That's basically all there is to it, is mixing those ingredients. And you can kind of take a spatula. I did try some really dark stain, and that was way too dark on the back there. But we'll put some cover up here. And, you can play with the mixture to whatever you want it to be. And I know this isn't going to come up great on camera, but, on a rock surface like this, I'm not going to have everything with snow on it. And you can see it kind of falling off. And then you can further seal this and weather this as you need as well. But because of the reduction in the shaving cream, you do have to make a lot of it if you want to cover a huge area. And then you shape it how you want, and then you can, like I said, seal it in. Yeah, so I think this probably needs kind of more shaving cream than I put in. I think I had more baking soda than shaving cream on there. But as you can see, wherever you're thinking it's going to deposit, you want to get it in there. And with rock surfaces, that's pretty easy to do. And then you can rub it down as far as you want so that some of the rock surface comes through. But it kind of looks kind of like, snow. Looks like snow to me. And so that's how easy this technique is and fun, although it has made an absolute mess. Even as I tried not to make a mess. But I certainly like how that comes out. And you can, if you're making a mountain scene or something like that where it's covering the full mountain or the full area, you certainly can go ahead and do that. And again, make a lot of it. This is just a on-camera test. So, yeah. So right, and so you can play with the mixture to see how you want it. Now, when I did, you can see hopefully on here when I did this, I was trying to add. Depending on where you live, this may be more prevalent than other places. I know in New Jersey, it was like that where I grew up, where the snow got really dirty on the roads, and it wasn't white at all. It was white on the sides, away from the road. But from the amount of traffic and everything, the dirt and grime when the plows were going through would pick all that up, and that would get in there. In Minnesota, there's a high mix of sand in the salt in Minnesota, and so you have some of that look, and then so that's not pure white. So it's never pure white on the ground. So you can see the difference. I did try some. I don't know if I tried some weathering powder over there. I don't know. That doesn't look great to me. But this reminds me more of the color of snow on the roads where I grew up, and kind of like this stuff does. I was trying different techniques with these. This reminds me a bit more of it. This is, I think, tile grout that I was eating. Yeah, this is tile grout. Um, but that grayness to it, and the patchiness on the road after it's been plowed and driven on, that reminds me a lot of what our roads look like. So anyway, so just a little fun side project that takes minutes to do, and then again you get something like that with just just a highlighted snow cover, you can see now. Here's a good example why you want to use a spatula or tool. Except you probably can't see that real well. Um, I pressed that in with my finger, my thumb, and it got my fingerprint on it. That's how impressionable that stuff is. So you don't want to use your fingers. So if you want to use gloves, you can for placing it, or use a spatula like I did. And again, you can play with the consistency in here, and it should last for some time. So I got a look what I did to my bottle of paint. It's all snowy now, but this should make it last for some time. So I should be able to come back in if it's airtight, uh, and come back to it and make more and come back to it. So, you know, and again, this could use a little bit more liquid. I've seen people use, um, I could have used more paint in there. There's some, with an acrylic, it's water based. So this one's having trouble staying on the side. It will eventually, but you can have something like that, and it just looks like snow that's hanging on. Um, and again, yeah, you can cover it up and everything. So, but just takes minutes to do. It's a simple technique, and I enjoy techniques like that that can bring things to life. I don't know what is going on with that camera, that light, but it's does that. So yeah, so yeah, so trying a reason to get messy at home and do something different and fun. But I think the frustration with the car and everything, and me wanting to do this. Now, Gopher Girl really has a bunch of Lego sets that are winter based, and she wants to do a winter scene. And I got thinking about that again, and it got me thinking about the snow again, and wanting to do that. And there we go with the lights again. And so that's what made me want to do this as a quick project. There you go. Another one where it just kind of gets stuck in there and it's just not melted. Maybe there's not enough sunlight, and this is a frozen place like Canada. So there you go. Fun little project. You can seal it so that it doesn't grow mold, but this isn't sealed, and this is many years old, and so there's no mold on there. At least I don't think the gray stuff is mold. No, it shouldn't grow mold. Um, if it's dried out, I would assume, and I'm no chemist or anything, but I would assume with all the moisture being in here, if that gets dried out and a lot of the base of it is filled up with baking soda, that there's probably not a lot of moisture in it um, to to um, to get moldy. But again, you can seal it too. So hopefully, I will be further along on this piece. Well, we probably don't do that. on this, and maybe hopefully next week we'll have some paint on here or something. Maybe working on decals. Decals is another thing that's frustrating. That takes a lot of practice. And I've had some really good decal placements and some really bad ones. Well, hopefully, I would hope not, and I would hope the baking soda and the sodium, which is sodium bicarbonate, I would hope that would take moisture out of it and help with that. But I've already sealed it up, so hopefully that's not enough exposure to mold. I haven't stored it that long. The last time I made it was again for made I have another larger board of these road sections and a plywood board with like four of these roads where I'm doing more tests with this stuff. And um, yeah, so I made just enough for that. So I didn't kind of um, I didn't store it. I wonder though how far reduced it would get, and if I have no idea. I'd be curious to see where this goes, but I'll probably want to use this for some anyway. But it really makes for a good it really makes for a good snow for your dioramas or your layout or whatever. Have a good night. Appreciate you being in here. Yep. Yep. I'm usually out there Sunday nights. I have my weekly call with my mom, who's in the chat here too. And so I usually cut out of Sidetrack Sunday a little bit early so that I can receive the call and hang out with my mom, which we do weekly. So, Jimmy, if you're still in here, um, um, how were you said on Saturday was a lot of the industry tours were happening. Um, I think when we connected on Facebook, I forget where we connected. Um, but how'd that all go? How'd the rest of the weekend go? So, now you can't see my shirt and my pants, but I look like I was eating something very sugary and it just got all over me. So this is not clean fun anyway. This is definitely um, get your hands dirty fun kind of stuff. But I just like the way it looks. And how simple of a technique it is. It's also inviting to do this kind of stuff. And don't let it go for girl. The computer is still mostly black. I really could make this look my cutting mat be completely snowy. So, I've come to doing the Twin Cities tours through the division and during the and initially I think my first tours that I ever really took were during the convention last year or a couple of years ago or whatever. But and then I really enjoy the Twin Cities division's area tours that we've done. Um, and so it's kind of a valuable part um, of the convention experience too. So I'm glad to see that there were tours. I think last year we lacked tours, um, and I think that was. I hope that we continue to make that a priority part of our convention. So, oh, I don't think. Do we have anything going on in the Twin Cities this weekend? I don't think I looked to see. Um, let's see what we have. What is it? So, do we have a couple things happening in? Doesn't look like we have. I know we're getting into the picnics. Okay, so in a couple weeks is or next weekend, I think, would be Union Depot train days in St. Paul. And then I don't think there is much out there for a while because we are in the summer months, so there's less to do. Model wise for sure. Um, and Twin Cities Division will have their picnics over the summer and as well. And hopefully we're able to get together a little bit more. Um, but I know we probably we don't usually have meetings. We usually have the picnics during the summer. So, and so you know, I'm not a I'm not a real salesman or anything, but just want to remind you that if you're somebody who likes to help out channels, we do have. I'm not monetized by YouTube, but we do have a PayPal link and a Venmo link. They're in the description um, as well, and I'll throw the tip jar up here for PayPal. If you've ever used PayPal, you can do it right through there and put any amount in that you would like that can help the channel. I'm looking to raise some money for I say for glue because we always need glue, but to give back to folks and to be able to get some kits and things that I can do giveaways on. Um, I would like to be part of that crowd that gives back to those who support me and show up every week and watch my videos and everything. So you can click on that. It gives some suggested donations. Donate whatever you like if you like. And then the Venmo link is um, in the description of the live stream as well. And Go for Girl, if you want to put up the link, the Venmo link in the chat, you can do that as well. That would be helpful. Uh, appreciate anything that you can contribute. And I'll leave it at that. And of course, if you're new to this live stream, I'm supposed to also tell you to subscribe and hit the bell and also hit the like so that more people can get access to the live stream and tell YouTube that you want to see more. Um, so, and so I'm going to throw up my most recent contributors as well as we come towards a close here. I just want to thank Bill and Bob and Matt and my mom for your help. What the heck happened to the camera? Uh, for your help, and I really appreciate everybody stopping in and going along with us. I hope to get this in color by next weekend, maybe. Um, you know, um, see where we can get with this and with the details in the bottom and see if we can move towards. I gotta fix this coupler over here popped off and gotta fix that and put some of those details on. And maybe we can get some of that color on and move forward. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and say goodnight and have a great weekend and appreciate again everybody uh, jumping into the live stream and as always, just jump in and try something. You may find a new passion. Have a great night, everybody. Bye now.